Hello. Dear friend of peace, Honorable Prime Minister Erna Solberg, Honorable former Prime Minister Kjell Bondevik, His Excellency Mohammed bin Abdul Al-Issa, Secretary General of the Muslim World League, Your Excellencies Ambassadors, dear friends of peace. On behalf of the Muslim World League and the Fondation Dialogue for Peace, I would like to welcome you all to this conference on how to fight hate and discrimination. Kjære venner, jeg vil starte med å gratulere statsminister Erna Solberg med Norges plass i FNs sikkerhetsråd. Her fortjener vi å gi ros og applaus. Godt jobbet, statsminister. Muslim World League og stiftelsen Dialog for Fred har lenge jobbet med å bygge broer mellom ulike kulturer og religioner. Og vi ser at behovet for å fortsette dette arbeidet er viktigere enn noen gang før. Vi har derfor tatt initiativet til denne konferansen. Med disse ord har jeg gleden av å gi ordet til min gode fredsvenn, fredsforkjemper, tidligere statsminister og leder av Oslo Senter, Kjell Magne Bondevik. Han skal lede denne konferansen videre. Takk for oppmerksomheten.
Prime Minister, Your Excellencies, the Muslim World League is a co-host of this seminar, together with the Fondation Dialogue for Peace. His Excellency Mohammed bin Abulkarim Al-Issa was appointed as Secretary General of the Muslim World League and Chairman of the International Body of Muslim Scholars back in 2016, and he was, before that, also, among other duties, a Minister of Justice. He will now deliver an opening speech by video.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. دولة رئيسة الوزراء بمملكة النرويج السيدة إيرنا سولبرغ، دولة السيد كيجل ماغني بونديفيك رئيس الوزراء الأسبق بمملكة النرويج، سعادة السيد عامر جاويد شيخ رئيس مؤسسة الحوار من أجل السلام، أصحاب المعالي، سيداتي سادتي، يسرني أن ألتقي بكم في هذا المؤتمر المهم الذي نناقش فيه موضوع الكراهية والتمييز. وبصفتي أمينا عاما لرابطة العالم الإسلامي ورئيسا لمنتديات التواصل الحضاري في عدد من العواصم العالمية، فإنه من المهم أن أؤكد من خلال هذا المؤتمر على أننا سواء في عالمنا الإسلامي أو في بقية عالمنا الإنساني الذي نتشارك العيش فيه بأخوتنا، أن أؤكد أن لدينا جميعا أصواتا معتدلة، أصواتا محبة للجميع، ترفض أي شكل من أشكال الكراهية والتمييز والتهميش. هذه الأصوات هي الأصوات السائدة التي تمثل حقيقة قيمنا الدينية والاجتماعية والإنسانية. أما ما عداها فهي أصوات متطرفة معزولة لا تمثل إلا آراءها الكارهة للجميع. إن المشكلة ليست في النصوص الدينية للأديان، ولا في أفكار الفلاسفة وعلماء الاجتماع، ولا في غيرها من الآراء والنظريات وعظات التاريخ التي نحترمها جميعا، ولكن المشكلة في فهمها وفي تطبيقها وفي القدرة على حمايتها من تحريف معانيها، حتى لا تكون هناك ثغرة تتسلل من خلالها تلك الأفكار المنحرفة، فنسيء لمعانيها الرائعة قبل أن نسيء لأي شيء آخر. كما تكمن المشكلة أيضا في ضبابية بعض الدساتير والقوانين، وفي استغلال المعنى الجميل للحريات المستمدة منها. ومن هنا استطاعت بعض أفكار وممارسات الكراهية والتمييز والتهميش المرور تحت شعارات زائفة. إن عالمنا أحوج ما يكون إلى منطق الاحترام والعدالة الشاملة، ولا يكون ذلك إلا من خلال تعزيز قيمنا المشتركة التي ترفض أي شكل من أشكال الكراهية والعنصرية والتمييز على أساس ديني أو عرقي أو أي تصنيف آخر مماثل. كما أن عالمنا بحاجة إلى التأكيد الفاعل على أن القفزات الحضارية المادية يجب أن تصاحبها قفزات حضارية أخلاقية، وإلا كانت النتيجة فادحة الخطورة. من هنا تبدأ قصة السلام الحقيقي. إن صناعة السلام لا تأتي بمجرد الأقوال، ولا تأتي من خلال فقاعات مصطنعة لا حقيقة لها سوى ظاهرتها الصوتية المؤقتة فقط، ولا تأتي صناعة السلام بنظريات غير منطقية، ولا بنداءات وشعارات تعقد الأمور، ولا بحوارات غير مسبوقة بالنيات الصادقة والمخلصة والوعي العميق للمستقبل. باختصار، جهود السلام هي أثر ملموس يسهم بفاعلية في نفع الإنسانية، وذلك من خلال المحافظة على أمنها وتعايشها وتعاونها وتعزيز أخوتها. إن الاحتفاء بالسلام المخادع أو الهزيل أو الشكلي هو ترويج له وترسيخ لمبادئه على حساب قيم السلام الحقيقية. أما أولئك الكارهون والعنصريون فإننا لن نقابلهم بنفس ضمائرهم أبدا، بل سنقابلهم بمحبة الخير لهم وإن رفضنا أقوالهم وأفعالهم. إن جميع أتباع الأديان والثقافات وكافة الأفكار الأخرى هم إخواننا في الإنسانية، وسنعمق هذه الأخوة لنصنع بها المزيد من جهود السلام الحقيقية بين أتباع الأديان والثقافات وبين مختلف التوجهات عموما. سنصنع بها المزيد من جهودنا في بناء الصداقة بين الأمم والشعوب، وهو مشوار بدأناه من سنوات بعدد من المبادرات العملية والملموسة الأثر، وسنمضي فيه ولن نتوقف أبدا إن شاء الله تعالى. وكمثال قريب، تلقيت في أغسطس من العام الماضي وبكل شرف طلب فخامة الرئيس السريلانكي أن أحضر للمساعدة في إنهاء حالة الاحتقان والكراهية المتبادلة بين أتباع الأديان بعد التفجيرات الإرهابية في كولومبو، والتي أوشكت أن تنتهي إلى تعقيدات خطرة. وبعد جهود ومباحثات وحوارات مطولة التف الجميع مرة أخرى حول بعضهم البعض، واحتفى أطفال وشباب سريلانكا بحضور قيادتها الدينية والسياسية وتنوعها الإثني والثقافي بذلك الإنجاز في احتفالية تاريخية. تأكد لنا من خلال هذا العمل ومن غيره أن الفطرة الإنسانية من حيث أصلها هي فطرة صادقة وبريئة، وأنها متى سمحت للظروف الطارئة أو لأصوات الشر الخارجة عن أصل فطرتها النقية، متى سمحت لها بأن تخترقها فإنها ستتحول إلى حالة أخرى الجميع فيها خاسر، وإن توهم البعض بأنه كسب الجولة مؤقتا. وفي مطلع هذا العام قمت بزيارة معسكر الموت في أوشفيتس ببولندا، حيث ترأست وفدا من كبار علماء ومفكري العالم الإسلامي من مختلف الدول الإسلامية. لقد نفذنا هذه الزيارة المهمة باسم علماء وشعوب العالم الإسلامي لأول مرة. كان الهدف من هذه القافلة، والتي رافقنا فيها عدد من أصدقائنا من كبار الشخصيات اليهودية من الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية التابعين لمنظمة الIGC وبعض أصدقائنا الإنجيليين، كان الهدف منها أن نعطي رسالة للعالم الإسلامي ولغيره بأننا ضد الأفكار الشريرة والتي تبدأ بذرتها بنزعة الكراهية والعنصرية، ثم تتطور لتصل إلى ما وصل إليه الفعل النازي الإرهابي. نعلم أن هذه الأعمال هي من صميم واجبنا الأخلاقي نحو بناء مجتمعات مسالمة وآمنة، ونحو تعزيز ثقافة المحبة والاحترام ولا سيما للأجيال القادمة. هذا ما يجب علينا جميعا، مدركين أن جهود الخير لا بد أن تكون جماعية حتى تصبح أقوى عزيمة وأكثر نجاحا واستدامة. إن كل شر يبدأ بالكراهية والعنصرية والتهميش. لننظر إلى المادية المجردة عن القيم، سنجدها تنبع من الأنانية التي هي محبة الذات وكره الآخرين. وعندما يكون لدى هذه الأنانية شيء من القوة فإنها ستمارس كل ما تستطيع من أجل قهر الآخرين وإذلالهم، والضحية في ذلك هو سلام عالمنا ووئام مجتمعاتنا ومستقبل أطفالنا. لقد أطلقنا تلك المبادرات الفعالة لمواجهة كل أشكال العنصرية والكراهية والتهميش حول العالم، وبالقوة الناعمة وليس غير القوة الناعمة سنستمر في مواجهة أساليب الكراهية بعون الله تعالى، سواء أكانت تستهدف أديانا معينة أو أعراقا معينة أو غيرها، ومن ذلك الإسلاموفوبيا ومعاداة السامية وغيرها. كما قمنا حول العالم بمواجهة المحاولات الشريرة التي تستهدف فئات معينة مثل تهميش دور المرأة، وكذلك الأساليب الإجرامية المتطورة التي تستهدف الاتجار بالبشر، وخاصة استغلال الظروف الصعبة للنساء والأطفال. لن نجد سعادة في حياتنا المادية أعظم من إسعاد الآخرين، ومن تعزيز الصداقة بين الأمم والشعوب، ومن معالجة كل ما يعيق هذه القيم الرفيعة، وبخاصة معالجة كافة أشكال الكراهية والعنصرية والتهميش. لقد تحاورنا مع عدد من القيادات السياسية والبرلمانية حول العالم من أجل سن التشريعات لتجريم كافة أشكال الكراهية والعنصرية والتهميش. كما نفذنا عددا من البرامج التي تستهدف تطوير كفاءة التعليم حول العالم وتعزيز دور الأسرة من أجل ترسيخ تلك القيم في وجدان أطفالنا وشبابنا. أشكر لكم مجددا هذه المشاركة وأكرر اعتزازي بكم جميعا وشكرا لإنصاتكم.
Many thanks to His Excellency, Secretary General of the Muslim World League. We are honored by the presence of our Prime Minister, Erna Solberg, here tonight. First, I also want to congratulate you and your government with Norway's membership in the UN Security Council 2021-22. As you will remember, from last time Norway was member, when we were together in government. This is a great challenge, but also represent great opportunities. And one of them is to focus on the problem we discussed today, hate and discrimination. I invite you, Prime Minister, to come forward to deliver your speech.
Good evening, everyone. I am very pleased to be here today. This conference will focus on what we can do to fight hate and discrimination. As mentioned here, yesterday Norway was elected into the Security Council of the United Nations. And we will make use of our seat to promote peace, security, and human rights. And the fight against hate and discrimination is part of this effort. Discrimination is not just a matter of human rights. It involves peace and security as well. Society with a high level of discrimination are often unstable. Exclusion can cause unrest to spread. Sadly, hate and discrimination are still very topical issues. People all over the world have these last weeks been protesting following the arrest and death of George Floyd in the US. The video footage shows unnecessary brutality with a tragic outcome. A police officer involved in the incident has now been charged with murder. But it is an example of brutality that we see in not just the US, but also other countries, in meeting with people who might be looked upon as a challenge in their society, but it's also due to racism and discrimination. And of course, it's not the first time African Americans have protested about police behavior. No, the whole world are rising up against the discrimination. And many people have protested here in Norway too. I fully understand their action. But of course, as Prime Minister, I cannot break the infection control rules. It's an important issue also to combat the COVID-19 disease. Today, the United States is a divided country. Divided politically, divided inside their society. That's not a good start for a country to grow on. In Norway, on the other hand, there's a high level of social equality and trust, and people generally feel safe. But even in Norway, many people must cope with racism and discrimination. This undermines trust and leads to greater inequality. That's why we have to be concerned about issues like racism and discrimination, because it does also break down the very fabric of the Norwegian society if it is increasing in our society. But there are some good statistics. Norway's integration barometer for 2020 was presented last week. This survey on immigration, integration, and diversity shows that more than 8 in 10 people believe there is some or a lot of discrimination in Norway, and this is the highest level ever recorded. More than 8 in 10 Norwegians also believes that immigrants facing discrimination when applying for jobs, and 4 in 10 believes the same is the case when immigrants are in contact with the police. But if you look at the surveys on how immigrants or the children of people who have immigrated to Norway is trusting the police in Norway, they trust the police more than the average Norwegian does, which is, I think, is a proof of this fabric that we have and the trust that is important to keep in our society. And of course, the increased statistics might not be a sign that discrimination has increased. It could mean that more people have become aware of the problem, including people who have never experienced it themselves. And it could be a good thing, because if you're more aware, you also raise your voice more if you see it, if you experience it, and you know it shouldn't be there. And what we really see now is that the feeling of young people for a just society is among those that leads the protest also against racism and discrimination in the demonstrations in Norway. Because we have to recognize a problem before we can start to do something about it. In the last few weeks, many people have been sharing their personal meetings with racism. But I've been into government before under the leadership of former Prime Minister Bondevik as the Minister of Immigration and Integration. And I have to admit, I have heard these stories for the past 20 years of young people having problems getting a job, or feeling that they get a job that is not up to the qualifications and the degrees they have, and that they are talked to in a way by other Norwegians that makes them feel as a secondary citizens in our society. And all of these meetings have shown me that racism and discrimination comes in many forms. They may appear at work, at school, or on the football pitch. When you are on the bus, when you're in the bar, or when you're looking for a place to live. On social media or on the street. Everyday racism can bring people down slowly. Racism and discrimination are threats to the democracy that stops people from using their talents to benefit society. What racism and discrimination share is not seeing people for who they are, but judging and labeling them out of fear and ignorance. And the drip, drip, drip effect drives people apart. The small always nagging on the fact that your parents came from another country, you look different, is always making this gap wider. So we must fight against the drips as well as the more serious acts of racism. They threaten to undo the ties that bind our society together. This is why the government has prepared an action plan against racism and other forms of discrimination. This is an overall plan that addresses how racism and discrimination affects different groups in different ways. It will be used to renew and strengthen Norway's efforts to combat racism and discrimination. It includes steps to expand research and build up expertise, action targeting children and young people, dialogue meetings at local and national level, and campaigns against discrimination in bars and restaurants. Knowledge and dialogue are vital in the fight against hate and discrimination. And the funny thing about this drip is that people might not think that, my action is based on racism or discrimination. It might just be that the barkeeper says, okay, they don't drink alcohol, I don't earn money. So why should I let them in? Or the person who asks you questions on your origin and feeling that you're a secondary citizen, when you're done, don't understand that when you have answered that question so many times and you are born and bred up in Norway, but you look different, it is a way of feeling secondary in our society. But also all of those who get a job application and for practical reasons don't really think so much about how their prepositioned thinking might lead to them finding a way through that big hole, stack of applicants and ending up with people who are looking the same, with the same education, and maybe more male than female, more Norwegian looking with Norwegian names than others. All of these things that might be one in a case for those who are making the decisions and not understanding that the systematicness of that leads to the feeling of not being able to use your talent in your society. It means that we have to be aware of our action in all different types of position. Having a job is the key to inclusion and integration. Of course, some people are not invited to interviews just because of their names. The action plan also includes a pilot project that we are now having in the government to submit an anonymous job application to the government administration. Research show that people with foreign-sounding names have a 25% lower chance of being called into a job interview, and the pilot project will look at whether more immigrants or children of immigrants to Norway are invited to interviews and offered jobs in the government administration if their names are not on their applications. We are working along several other tracks as well. We are updating our action plan against anti-Semitism. We have also begun the work on an action plan against discrimination and hate targeting Muslims. The Ministry of Culture has held meetings in various parts of the country, obtaining inputs to the new plan. And yesterday we presented our revised action plan against radicalization and violent extremism, because this is closely linked to our work on discrimination. No one is born a terrorist, but people may turn into terrorism if they believe that they have no other options. If their group belongings is fulfilled in somebody with an extreme purpose instead of feeling connected to our society. This is why prevention is vital. We must identify people who are in the risk of as soon as possible and take effective steps to help them. This is how we can make people less vulnerable to radicalization, and this is how we can build a more inclusive society. And this is the same if the radicalizing ideology is extreme jihadism or if it's neo-Nazi youth groups that are targeting. It's a lot of the same type of mechanisms that is functioning. The Norwegian Police University College has been working to increase the numbers of students with minority background, and they are succeeding. All police districts are to appoint diversity liaison officers. They will work with the ethnic minority groups to prevent conflict and the loss of public trust, as we have seen in other countries. And happily, as I said earlier on, in Norway, more than 7 out of 10 people trust the police, and the percentage for immigrants are even higher than that for the population as a whole. And we want Norway to be a society based on freedom and justice, a society where everyone has equal opportunities, whatever their background or heritage. But freedom of expression is one of our most important tools for encouraging dialogue. And the government has recently appointed the Freedom of Expression Commission. Its first meeting was held last week. Article 100 of the Norwegian Constitution is on freedom of expression. It was amended in 2004, the year Facebook was launched. Since then, society has changed in many ways. Perhaps most of all in the venues for abusing your freedom of expression and the challenges the new social media poses to that. My government and I personally are expecting a lot from the Commission's discussions and conclusions on how we managed to keep our inclusive society and still have freedom of expression as the backbone of everything we do. The Commission has been asked to promote a broad public debate, include input and viewpoints from many different groups. Dialogue is not always the easiest part to choose. Sometimes it might be the most difficult one, but it's always the right path to take. Speaking up means taking a stand. It means speaking out for the values that you believe in and the society you would like to live in. And we do not want a society where the color of the skin, the place you come from, or the place your parents came from determines who you are, where your sexual orientation or your religion defines you as a person. And racism and discrimination destroys our trust in each other. That is why we have to work together towards our common goal, a society where you can be yourself, a society where our actions are based on dialogue and understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Prime Minister. You see that in respect for you and your political color, I have almost a jacket as blue as your dress, yes. But only almost. Aamir Sheikh from the Fondation Dialogue for Peace will give you these flowers. And I also ask Imam Nenan Al-Issa, who will give you a letter on behalf of the Council of Imams in Norway.
Thank you. Thank you.
And as executive chair of the board of the Oslo Center, I give you this report.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good luck with the rest of the seminar. I'm sorry I should have stayed here, but I already have
Okay.
media engagement.
Yeah, I know that you have a busy schedule, so we are so grateful to you that you could spend this time together with us. So we fully understand that you have to leave now. Thank you. Okay, when the Prime Minister is leaving, I will invite Arina Aamir Sheikh, who is a member of the Central Council of Youth in Oslo and has also written a book and other things, to come up and give a greeting to us. The floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum. Dear everyone, kjære alle sammen. I stedet for I dag ha en innledning til temaet jeg skal snakke om, vil jeg heller begynne rett på sak. For I dag det ingen tid å miste. I dag det heller på tide å handle. I alle år, I all tid og på et hvert sted har det finnes minst ett menneske som har blitt diskriminert grunnet sin bakgrunn, seksualitet, hudfarge eller religion. For hvert sekund som går, lider et menneske. For hvert minutt som går, skriker et annet om hjelp. Og for hver dag som går, blir uskyldige menneskeliv tatt. I dag snakker ikke jeg, Aamir, på vegne av islam, på vegne av norsk-pakistanerne i Norge, på vegne av ungdommen eller på vegne av elevene i denne verden. I dag snakker jeg kun som et menneske som er akkurat likt alle de andre 7,8 milliarder menneskene i denne verden. I 2020 skulle man aldri trodd at det i det hele tatt ville vært nødvendig å ta opp den saken her. Men i dag er det viktigere enn noen gang at jeg hever stemmen min, slik at de som ikke har en, får en nå. Det er viktigere enn noen gang at jeg presser de med makt, slik at de kan handle før enda et uskyldig menneskeliv blir tatt. Og nå holder det ikke kun med løfter, nå er det på tide med en endring. Hele menneskeheten ødelegges foran øynene våre, og jeg kan ikke tolerere å bare sitte og se på uten å handle. De siste 2 terrorangrepene i Norge har vært rettet mot islam og muslimer. Den 22. juli 2011 ble 77 menneskeliv tatt. Grunnen var hat mot muslimer. En uskyldig mann med navn George Floyd ble drept av politibetjenter i USA den 25. mai 2020. Grunnen var rasisme basert på hans hudfarge. Synagoger blir bombet, homofile blir banket opp, kvinner blir diskriminert, og funksjonshemmede får ikke være en del av det helhetlige samfunnet. Dette er hva 2020 er. Dette er den verden vi lever i. Menneskesynet baseres på hvordan du ser ut, hvem du liker, eller hva du tror på. Men teorien om menneskeverd utgjør ikke lenger noen betydning. Det faktum at alle blør det samme farget blodet, har et hjerte på venstre side av kroppen, og puster inn det samme oksygenet for å kunne overleve, ikke lenger har noen påvirkning på vår mentalitet, er rett og slett skremmende. Det skremmer meg hvilken retning vi går i. Det skremmer meg at vi kriger mot hverandre, når vi heller burde krige mot vår felles fiende, ekstremistene. Alle som tar ett uskyldig menneskeliv, er en trussel mot hele menneskeheten. Det er ikke hverandre vi skal kjempe mot, det er vi som bør stå sammen. Stå sammen for å bekjempe urett og hat, og heller skape forståelse og forsoning. Stå sammen mot fienden, og stå sammen for å skape en verden fylt med trygghet og likestilling. Dette er hva mitt håp er, og dette er alt jeg ønsker. Tusen takk for deres oppmerksomhet.
Tusen takk til Arina, en ung og klar røst som taler ut om det viktige temaet vi har på dagsordenen i dag. We change a little bit, as you understand, between Norwegian and English. I hope that is okay for most of you. And we will do this also in the panel. And now I invite the following persons to come up to the floor and to find a table. I will move over here. And I invite Manuela Ramin-Osmundsen, who is Director for Labor and Inclusion in Drammen Kommune. And she is also a former minister in the Norwegian cabinet for equality and children issues. So you can take place here beside me. And Dr. Usman Rana, are you here? There you are. He is a writer. He is a doctor, very active in debates in Norway about the issues that we are going to discuss today. So please, you can find another. Yes, I think you should stand here. Ingrid Rosendorf Joyce, he is Secretary General of the Council of Cooperation Between Religions and Life Stands in Norway. So you will find your table here. Javed Mushtaq, he is the leader of the Global Shapers in Oslo, Department of World Economic Forum. And we have Josef Johannes, he's a writer and artist. And Linda Noor, she is the leader of a think tank, Minotenk. So please find your places, all of you. You see, we keep the distance because of COVID-19. and we respect the rules. So I will now chair this discussion between us in the panel for about 45 minutes. And I think I will start with you, Manuela, because you were also the first leader of, I switched to Norwegian now, as we agreed upon. Du var den første leder av det nyopprettede statlige senter mot etnisk diskriminering, som faktisk ble opprettet i min tid som statsminister. Og det har gått mer enn 20 år siden det. Og jeg vet at du er engasjert, du var engasjert, og du er engasjert i kamp mot all form for diskriminering, og derfor var du også den riktige første leder av dette senteret. Men nå på disse årene som har gått etterpå, hva tenker du om utviklingen? Har det blitt bedre?
Først, takk for invitasjonen. Det er veldig fint å være her, og jeg må si å høre statsministerens tale, fordi det gir oss et lite pekepinn av hva som har skjedd disse 22 årene. Senter mot etnisk diskriminering ble opprettet i 1998, og vi hørte fra statsministeren alt det som er nå. I 1998 så hadde vi en lovbestemmelse, artikkel 55a, som forbød diskriminering i arbeidslivet. Og så hadde vi bare en bestemmelse i straffeloven, og det var omtrent det vi hadde. Vi hadde veldig mange frivillige organisasjoner som kjempet mot diskriminering. Vi hadde enkeltindivider som kjempet for seg selv. Men det som skjedde da Senter mot etnisk diskriminering ble opprettet av tidligere statsminister Kjell Bondevik, det er at staten tok et ansvar. De tok et ansvar for å si at dette med diskriminering handler ikke bare om enkeltindividets opplevelse, men det handler også om et lands evne til å si at dette er en del av det arbeidet som vi må gjøre, det er en del av det ansvaret som vi må ta. Og det er egentlig veldig interessant å se, så til ditt spørsmål, ja, det har skjedd en utvikling når vi ser det regelverket som er bygd opp, som er etter hvert blitt omfattende. Altså vi har en bestemmelse i forhold til hatkriminalitet. Vi har et samlet regelverk mot diskriminering, og det handler ikke bare om diskriminering på grunn av kjønn, som var da, men på grunn av etnisitet, på grunn av religion, på grunn av funksjonshemming, på grunn av tro. Det er i seg selv et veldig tankekors å erkjenne at et land som Norge og i veldig mange andre land, som vi hørte den første tale, at hat, diskriminering handler om at man setter ned en person på grunn av en eller annen egenskap. Og det er i seg selv en veldig stor utvikling å erkjenne at de som kan være krenket på så mange måter. Så det er i hvert fall et perspektiv i den utviklingen, og så er jeg sikker på at i løpet av debatten så vil vi gå gjennom andre perspektiver, men det er viktig at staten tar et ansvar.
Vi skal gå gjennom flere aspekter ved dette, og vi håper også få en samtale mellom dere i panelet. Men Manuela, vi ser jo alle at du også er mørk i huden, og har en annen etnisk bakgrunn, selv om du er norsk, har bodd her i mange år. Så kan det være litt personlig å spørre, har du selv registrert noen form for diskriminering eller ytringer mot deg på grunn av din hudfarge?
Ja, det har jeg gjort. Absolutt. Og det er fra Altså jeg er født og oppvokst i Frankrike, og jeg har opplevd det for eksempel i studietiden, og en veldig sånn konkret eksempel som jeg bruker ofte, fordi det er et så sterkt eksempel. Kommer opp til eksamen til muntlig, og så er det bare en sansor som ønsker deg velkommen, og så sier, hvor kommer du fra? Ja, jeg kommer fra Frankrike, Karibiske øyene. Ja. Det endrer karakter. Og på hvilken måte? Ja, du får lavere karakter. Og så er det velkommen til eksamen. Så det er ett eksempel. Okay. Men ja, så det er ja, diskriminering treffer alle, og så det...
Så du opplever dette fortsatt også i Norge?
Jeg vil ikke si det. Det altså, nå det en... ja, jeg tenker at jeg opplever det i mye mindre grad, men jeg registrerer hvis vi på passkontrollen at det mer kontroll, så ja, det skjer. Det en del av virkeligheten. Opplever også veldig mye annet, men det et faktor.
Nei, for vi var jo alle sjokkert og bekymret over det vi har opplevd i USA i den senere tid, med rasebasert vold. Og vi tenker kanskje at her i Norge så har vi ikke noe problem, men vi har nok vår hverdagsrasisme fortsatt, som vi må bekjempe. But then I think I can move over to Osman Rana. And we know that hate speech is a part of the problem. And by help of these so-called social media, I say so-called because very often they are not so very social, but by help of the social media we can spread also all our messages, and we see also people are spreading hate speech. So, and you are a very active participant in the public debate, and I'm sure that you also have received hate speeches and hate language. So what can we do, Osman, to combat this?
You want me to speak in English?
Yes, if you can do that. Because Secretary General Al-Issa is also following us, and I think also others here, they prefer English. So now we switch over to English. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, hate speech, I think, takes place in many different shapes and forms. And I do experience a lot of that. I have been experiencing a lot of that, but I become kind of immune. So if people write against me on a blog, on an extremist right-wing blog, we have those in Norway, they quite often write about me, that I'm a danger to this country, etc. So, but I'm immune. I tolerate that. But I know that for maybe newcomers in the public debate, it is a huge challenge. And I know people, I know particularly some female Muslims, they have stopped debating in the public sphere of Norway. So, and that's very sad, because then some people's freedom of expression becomes a barrier to other people's freedom of expression. So I think we need to speak more about freedom of expression, but I think we also need to speak more about politeness, dignity, respect. You know, respecting another person is not the same as agreeing with another person. And I'm very fond of that argument that we should respect other people's arguments, what they're saying, what their beliefs are, even though that doesn't mean that we accept personally all of what they are uttering. So I think we need to introduce this politeness, this dignity, how we speak to each other, not only when we meet each other physically, in person, but also digitally. And I think we have been speaking about this for the at least last 10 years. Particularly, we had a debate after Anders Breivik attacked many youngsters in Norway, that how the public debate is. But I don't really find it very improving yet. I think we have, sadly enough, we have also some major politicians. I won't mention names because they're not here. But I assume that you understand who I'm aiming at. Because we have also major politicians in Norway. They have even been ministers who are actually uttering type of hate speech, discrimination, explicitly. So I think we need to introduce this. So how to combat that? I think we need to talk more about respect and dignity, basically.
I think that's so important what you say. But when you personally have has received such hate speeches on your social media or in other ways, do you argue against them, or do you leave them in silence? What do you think is best strategy?
You know what the ideal strategy is? Maybe one should argue with them, but it's going to be exhausting because there are many, I'm sorry to say, crazy people out there. So my approach has been, I don't have time. Now I have 3 kids, and I work as a doctor at Oslo University Hospital, so I don't really have time to argue against them. So I give my opinions, and there are many people uttering hate speech against me. Personally, I don't care anymore. So I'm totally immune.
You
So,
are immune, but not all people are
Not all
immune.
people are. So I think people should argue against these people, at least block them. And also I think many social media platforms have been undertaking some methods to not censor, but to reduce the amount of these types of people. So on the other hand, if I'm allowed to emphasize, I think it's important that people are still allowed to give their opinions.
But maybe you come to a point where it sometimes is best to block them.
Yes, block them. I think blocking is very...
I must admit that I have done that.
Yes.
When I also, as politician, and after that received such hate messages, I couldn't start arguing with them. I blocked them. And that is also a message.
Exactly.
That they should understand. Well, let us move on to Linda Noor. You are leader of the think tank, Minotank. And what do you think we can do to mobilize common people in fighting discrimination and hate and violence?
Well, first of all, as individuals and states, we need to be sure that we provide equality and justice for everyone. I think that is definitely the first step. As long as we suppress our population, or if we don't grant people the freedom of expression, the freedom of religion, grant half the population, the women, basic human rights, I think that talking about how to prevent hate and discrimination is very hard without having the fundamental agreement that equality and justice is the basic fundament of all societies. And now we have seen that there is an amazing mobilization around the world in support of Black Lives Matter movement. And I really hope to see that this really change the things that the Prime Minister said that we have been talking about for the last 20 years. And we are still talking about it, and that means that even though there are positive changes, it's still a very serious problem, and there are still children growing up with this as a reality. So I think that we all need to do more. We can all do better in supporting this movement, and I would also love to see this movement grow big in the Middle East.
Yeah, thank you. Important message. If I can be a little bit personal, you are white, but as far as I know, you have converted religiously, from one religion to another, to Islam. Have you experienced any harassment, discrimination because of that?
Well, yes, of course. Since I'm also a public figure, I get the same as everyone else who are out in the public debates, and I think maybe especially female, provoke if they have strong opinions. So of course that's a part of it, but I will definitely not say that. As a white person, I can always blend in with the majority. So I can choose to leave this, public debate and the hate speech that follows that. But people who are, visible minorities, they cannot choose to, be invisible when they are on the bus and someone wants to, you know, ask them if they support Mullah Krekar or Al-Qaeda, or, you know, when they go to lunch and people are making fun of their beard or their headscarf. They cannot, you know, just blend in as I can do.
Okay. Yeah, since we now touched upon religion on the second question with you, maybe we should move forward to Ingrid Rosendorf Joyce, who is Secretary General of the Council of Cooperation between Religions and Lifestyles in Norway. What do you think? Is religion a source of hate and discrimination and extremism? And how can you combat it?
Of course, it's easy to say no and it's easy to say yes, and I think the answer is somewhere in between. Let me first say that freedom of religion and belief is facing difficulties globally. According to the Pew Research Institute, a majority of the world's countries have limitations on religion in law and practice. More and more countries keep one preferred religion and introduce limitation on religions that are not the preferred one. Minorities and vulnerable groups like women are suffering when the civil space is shrinking. And I think it's fair to say that in Norway, also the government have done significant steps to choose a different path. And that is to try to include the minorities, religious minorities, with the majority to build the common us. And I think the Prime Minister put it correctly in some of her speech earlier. Nevertheless, topics like discrimination needs to be addressed also in the religious communities. Religious communities are part of the civil society, and criticism of religion is part of the freedom of expression and freedom of speech. And it's a part of the conversation between us. What is religion? What is culture? What is changeable and not? What is negotiable and not? And I think that religious communities must search, and they do search, in their own religious texts and traditions to see what do we teach about the other? What do we teach about the other religious groups? Are other religious groups even present in our curriculums? Or if they are they presented in a fair way and for them recognizable way? I think that's an important question to ask. And it is asked within our council. We have this conversation all the time. What do we learn as Christians about the Jews? What do the Jews learn about or teach their children about the Muslims, etc.? That's an important conversation.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I remember from my time in politics and both in parliament and in government, we discussed this about education, the role of education to improve the respect to people with another religion than ourselves. I think Norway was one of the first countries, maybe the first one, to introduce a compulsory curriculum where we teach the pupils not only in Christianity, which is the main religion in Norway, but also in the other religions and lifestyles. So when I was around in the world and spoke about such issues, I referred to this, and it paid attention, and people were interested in what we are doing in Norway in this regard. We are not perfect, but I think we can say that we are in the front with regard to using our compulsory education to improve the respect of other religions, and that is so important. It's also my conviction that, as also Al-Issa, Secretary General, pointed to, that religion in itself should not be a source of hate and extremism.
May I just add
But
that?
maybe religion is used, or I will say misused, for that purpose. What will you want to comment more on that?
I totally agree. But all religion is interpreted religion in terms of it exists in a time and a place. And so we all have, as religious people, have a obligation to search in our own tradition and our own text, how does this communicate? Not to change the holy scriptures, but to change the way we actually use them today. I think that's important.
Yeah, and I think another, I don't know what your experience is, but I have my own experience that bringing people together from different religions and sit down for a dialogue. Not evangelize, but dialogue, which is more to listen than to preach. And to listen to others, to try to understand, not agree necessarily, but to understand them. That is so important. Because, and also to identify if we have some common values.
Yes.
And I'm sure we have some common values in the main religions. We believe in the main religions, we believe in God. We have the value of peace. We have the value of justice together. We have the value of respect for the holy, despite it's different what is holy. So I think to bring people together, sit down, talk about these things, and how also to learn to live peacefully with our differences. That is a key to avoid religion to be misused for extremism and violence. We can try to come back to that, because now I want to go further, because we can move from religion to culture, I think. We have Josef Johannes. He is an artist, he is a writer. And we have talked about religion now, how we can use religion to promote reconciliation and peace instead of conflict and violence. But how do you think we can use culture and art to fight against hate and discrimination? I know you have some experience.
Yeah, I think the only best possible way is to through education. And I think that the way you can educate people is much more efficient than creating laws and reforms, because laws and reforms can always be manipulated or be self-interpreted, and every citizen is also protected under the Norwegian government constitution, the EU laws, and the United Nations through paragraph of human rights. And you see, it doesn't really have an effective effect. So I think through education is the right step to go about. And I've created a black superhero called the Urban Legend, and it's now used as part of school curriculum. And I'm very proud that for a lot of white kids in Norway, their first meeting or an experience with a black person is actually a superhero. So it's not some of the stereotypes that a lot of people think of us black people as criminals, asylum seekers, and so on. So I think that's the really, really important step, is through education. And currently now, I'm also writing a special issue about police violence and discrimination, because I myself have experienced police discrimination on 3 different continents. In the US, I'm not even a US citizen, and I've been there so many times, and I've been stopped over, been pulled a gun at, and I'm always in the black communities, because most of my friends are black when I go over there. And every time we might be hanging out on a hot summer day, the cops come up and they pull us up up against the wall. They frisk us, and they look for tattoos and ask me if I'm a part of a gang, and they do all kinds of really, really sick, nasty stuff. So I think the only way we can conquer this is through education, basically. I think so. I think that's the most efficient way, really, to start from a very, very early age and then take it from there.
It's so shocking what happened in the US, and I was surprised also in the way that US is a country of immigrants. All US citizens are immigrants from years back. And there are so many black people there. So discrimination because of race and skin color, still there. It was a surprise to me, I must say. Is it right, you talked about education and young people. Is it right that you also have experience to work with the Nobel laureate Malala?
Yes, I did a project with laureate Malala Yousafzai. So it was more focused on women's rights, basically. So we did that right after she won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2015. So that was a very good experience. And I also worked with the Nelson Mandela Foundation. I'm actually a Nelson Mandela ambassador. So I've been to South Africa. We did a big project together in the urban areas like Soweto, Alexandria. And it meant a lot to the kids to see a black superhero. So I think it's all about making the outsiders feel included in today's society. Otherwise, a lot of them will be, I think they will feel left out and they will self-destruct more or less. I've seen a lot of my friends also self-destruct because of all this discrimination that they experienced from a very, very young age. So that's pretty sad.
Okay, good. We have talked about religion, religious communities. We have talked about culture and art. Now we should move over to the business sector. Because we have among us Javed Mushtaq. He's leader of the Global Shapers of Oslo, Department of World Economic Forum, I understand. What is your experience from business life with regard to discrimination because of skin color or race or religion or sex or whatever?
Yeah. I would just start by quoting, I think there was this journalist by Aftenposten, Ingrid Senseth. She said something about this whole debate about racism. And she was talking about that the resemblance to the Me Too movement and the debate around that. You did not believe because you did not see, and you did not see because you did not believe. And that's the problem now, right? Because in light of the whole Black Lives Matter movement, we have started to kind of see people raise their voices, sharing their stories of things which are happening. And you can't just shove them under the bed and say that those are anecdotes of single episodes which is happening even in the business sector. Now, when you get enough stories, you start to see a pattern. And when you get enough patterns, you start to see a system which is broken or a system which is discriminating, not necessarily based on racism, but a lot of unconscious biases and structures which are built up to have a lot of subjective biases throughout the processes. Often promoting people who look like themselves, and you tend to have very homogeneous groups. So you can't really approach this from a single initiative problem. You have to approach it from a systemic approach. You have to look at a system and see how this then can be changed. When you talk about discrimination in the workforce, you can just look at some of the numbers. So IMDi gave out the integreringssurvey last week, I think, barometer, and 84% of people said that people with minority background have experienced somewhat discrimination throughout the work processes or interview processes. When you look at the representation in top 50 companies in Norway, 242 leaders, 3 people are Norwegian with minority background. It's less than 1%. It's a very low representation. Now, the answer can be that obviously you can have not qualified people, or you can have qualified people, you're not really looking for them. But I think this is the problem that we need to solve, that even if there are not qualified people, how do you work from a system approach, working from an early stage to start qualifying and providing equitable opportunities for people of underrepresented groups, equal opportunities to get represented up in the top. And I see that in the workforce today, it's very homogeneous, it's a lot of biases, and I think it's a problem that we're starting to see now. And the reason why we started to see it now is because we start to get the data and the facts around this. And when you have the facts, you can't hide behind anecdotes. And I think this is the big change which is happening now. But obviously you can have the data, and you know that there's a problem, and now you need to start working on mechanisms, both on individual, organizational, and also policy level to actually create those systemic changes. And I think that's what we need to do now. We have an incredible important opportunity in light of what's happening now to leapfrog the whole conversation of diversity and inclusion, not only because it's good and the right thing to have representation, but obviously it's good for businesses. So when we look at Norway, small export-driven nation, 5.5 million people, we need to work with the world. And we need to have diversity to really reap the benefit of innovation and have that competitive advantage. And I think that's what we need to tell the business leaders on why this is extremely important alongside with the representation. So it's a problem, but it's also a huge opportunity.
Manuela, I think you wanted to comment on this.
Yes, I can comment in what I think is interesting when you see the historical perspective, which is 20 years. In the 90s, we were thinking that more integration will result in less discrimination. But what we realize with this panel is that we have to work on both sides. We have to work on integration policies, and we have to work on anti-discrimination work in a very, very broad perspective. So this is really interesting, because we were really thinking in some times that when people will be educated, well, they won't be like me coming from another country, but will be born in Norway with no foreign accent, then the solution will be there. But it's more difficult, it's more complex. And what I think is very interesting with what's happening now is it's not just people with black colors or immigrants protesting. I think that this awareness now about the majority of the community all over the world is overwhelming. I mean, the recognition that we have a problem, I must say that for me it's a kind of change. Even if you had some people saying that we have a problem, I think that there are so many people from my majority saying we have a problem. So this is really something that I hope which will be a power in the change that we want to come in all the different sectors that we have been pointing out. The majority is conscious that this is a problem that we have to fight together. Very neat.
Back to Javed, just one question. What is your experience when you have worked with employers and with employees? About when you have worked with them on the topic of discrimination, do you really experience a willingness to make a change, or how?
I think we're getting to the point where our organization are acknowledging that there's a business case for this and they want to change, but they don't necessarily know how and what the toolbox is. And we don't have a common definition and vocabulary to talk about these topics, and it's not an open conversation we have. So I think there is still this small step where we need to go to start actually implementing changes. There's a willingness, but still very few initiatives happening in the organizations. And unfortunately, still a lot of cases of discrimination, including a lot of experience I've had myself.
I see. Linda, you asked for the floor.
Well, I think all of us have to be also more critical of where we put our money and where we work ourselves. There are a lot of things that we can do ourselves. We can go to the leaders of our workplace. We can go to the human resources responsible person and ask them, do you have a plan for diversity at our workplace? Do you have a plan against discrimination and to prevent racism and discrimination at our workplace? And we as human beings, we can actually make people around us commit to this. And I think often we are just depending on politicians and other people to do what we actually can do ourselves. And we can actually it's so much things that we can do ourselves if we just take the step and actually do it and encourage other people around us to do the same things. And when it comes to diversity at workplace, it's in Norway we have come quite far when it comes to gender equality, but there is a problem that when a lot of companies are talking about diversity, they still mean to recruit more women. That's they are still there at that level, and they are not really talking about diversity. So that's we are still there at that point, and luckily some huge companies have finally starting to work with diversity in the real sense of the word. Like for example, the DNB have also now started to make this as an integrated policy in all levels of their company, and not only recruiting, for example, female leaders, which they have been doing for some years.
Okay, Ingrid.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that in my experience, diversity and pluralism is good for business. It's good for production of the work of the people working together. It's good for building teams and more creative, and I think business sector knows that, and maybe in the forefront, even before organizations such as a civil sector. It's good for business to have people different gender, different skin types, different backgrounds, different languages, different. They can actually build together instead of having like 5 people from a place in Bergen working together. You didn't do much then. I think to be aware of that is important. I just want to say one more thing, and that is, it is of course important to fight discrimination because it's the right thing to do. But it's not because we feel sorry for the minority groups. I think it's important to stress that, as the Prime Minister also tapped into, we need to fight this because racism and anti-Semitism and Islamophobia is bad for it's ruined our society as such. It's not because we feel sorry for the minority groups. It's just because it actually ruins our society, also the majority's society.
I see. Osman.
Yes, thank you. I just want to point out that I think one of the major challenges when it comes to discrimination in our country, Norway, is discrimination against religious people. And I think recent research done by the University of Oslo, it was published in the Christian paper Hvordan, that if you had a Christian or Muslim name, you had a less probability to get a new job. So I think that's a major challenge. And Muslims, of course, had even less probability than the Christians. Like if the Christians stated that they were active in Christian organizations or they were actively Christian, they had less probability to get a new job in Norway. So I think we need to speak more about that. And many polls show that Muslims particularly are subjected to discrimination at different places, at the workplace, because people easily combine maybe extremism or other social issues with Muslims, reading in the media negative things about Muslims. So I think in general being religious in Norway today, in a very hyper-secular society, is also increasingly becoming a problem, and you can easily become subjected to discrimination. On the other side, I think my wife, she wears the hijab, and she always tells me that she has never been thinking too much about wearing the hijab, that she's wearing the hijab, it's just a natural part of her, but she's not focusing on that. So her approach is that because she doesn't have a victim mentality, she has not been struggling so much in the Norwegian labor market. So I think that's also important, that minorities or religious people, other people, should have ambitions. We shouldn't give them this victim mentality. So we need to show them that there are many opportunities in a country like Norway. There are good people in Norway. Not all are racist. So I think we need to give a positive message also. And also, lastly, I think, and I must warn, discrimination is a huge problem, but I think we should also warn about a trend, I think, that all criticism is discrimination, which is not. All criticism in the public debate about any group is not necessarily discrimination or racism. And so we shouldn't think that, for example, that all liberal values should be the standard for Norwegian people, or all conservative values. We should respect each other's opinions. And even though we disagree, it doesn't mean that we want to discriminate.
Interesting what you said, also referring to experience that active Christians can be discriminated from job opportunities, as Muslims are. And this is another side of an experience I have myself when I had interreligious dialogue with several people, especially with Muslim leaders. Because Muslim leaders whom I met, they very well understood me because they knew that I'm an active Christian, practicing even a pastor. But what was more difficult for them to understand was very secular people. Of course, we shall respect them as well. But my experience was that to have a dialogue with an active Christian, that was understandable for them, because we both have God in our perspective. But atheists and agnostics, they couldn't understand. So that was very interesting. But in a secular society like Norway, it may be sometimes opposite. Well, Manuela, I feel that we all agree here that the main means against hate and discrimination and extremism is to stand up against it in religious life, in business life, in cultural life. But it's also, maybe not the most important, but it's also a question about legislation. And what do you think? You have been working with this, both on national level and now on local level. Is the Norwegian legislation, our laws in this field, good enough to fight this problem? You spoke so perfect English, so you can continue in English if you want, or if you want Norwegian.
That's okay. I guess it's a very difficult question. Because the law is improving, but it's very difficult to have the law which are, there is a difference between what a law is preventing and what individuals are feeling they want to be protected by the law. And the difference and the gap can be quite difficult. So we have a discussion, ongoing discussion in the legislation, which is improving. The legislation has been changed for several times, but I will guess that what the panel is taking in account now is that it's not just a question of law. At the same time that we were thinking that integration and discrimination, more integration will conduct to less discrimination, at the same time we were thinking that at that time, if the laws are better, then the problem will be solved. But it's not just a question of law, and to combat discrimination, we are bounded to use all the different tools that we are taking. And I would say one more thing, is that I have experienced in the 90s, and it's still the case, that it demands a huge amount of courage for an individual being discriminated against to choose a legal path. It is very hard to stand up with your story. It is difficult, but it's difficult to stand up with your story and choose a legal path. Because the legal path is full of conditions, is full of different conditions, and it can be a huge fall, personal fall, if you take the courage to try to fight and use the legal path and you don't succeed. The individual damages can be very high. So this is a really complex subject, and I feel like that it's very, very, very important to have laws. It's very important to have lawyers who are helping people to choose the legal path. But the legal path is a complicated one, and especially at the individual approach for individuals. Very, very difficult. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing in this perspective. I think that's important, and I think you are right that for individuals to bring a case into our legal system is very difficult. It's risky, but sometimes maybe it's necessary. But you need resources behind you. You need good lawyers, of course, to do this.
Good friends to help you.
Yeah.
Yes, and right. Support you morally.
And we have examples that has been done, also with a positive outcome. But it's not so easy. So I think using other means should be the most usual to do. And I think also about you artists and using culture. Something that has impressed me is, for instance, if you have a music band and they stand up on a podium and they play, you have white, you have black, you have yellow people in the same band, and you have a Jew, you have a Christian, you have a Muslim in the same band. That is very often better than any paragraph in a law. What will you say to that?
Well, it's a beautiful thing, but just to get back to your point about laws, I don't think like you had laws for decades and still the problem is still there. And people are using the laws to manipulate it, and everybody agrees that nobody likes racism, but they preach it, but they don't practice it. So you have to really take it to another level, really. and make people really stand up for what they really are practicing, really, because and hold them accountable. I think that's very, very important. And it's also good. It's always good to see diversity. I really think that's very important. But you have to see things clearly and with sincerity, and really see the problem for what it is without sugarcoating it. Because I think that's what we've been doing for several decades now, and the problem's still here. And how I really think about going is that when you going to reach the younger generation by educating them, and when you educate the young generation, the older generation will follow, and that's how you eliminate the problem. Not like giving a torch, then it just goes on and on and on like a never-ending story, or a song, yeah. But I think that's the right way to go about it, and that's what I'm fighting for, and that's what I'm dedicated to.
Well, the time is running out for us. We are approaching the end of this panel discussion. Let me just try to wire up a little bit. We were following, all of us, what happened in the US recently. And we were so sad for the experience from over there. But we know at the same time that Norway is not a paradise in this way. We had the case with Mr. Behring Breivik. That was really about hatred, and especially against Muslims. And we had the same now in the last case with Mr. Mansau in the mosque and with his sister. So I think that we have also to be really concerned about what can happen in our own society. I don't know if any of you want a last word, but if you have, will you also comment on, do you see a real threat or a danger in the Norwegian society that things can develop in a wrong direction? Any of you who want to say a last word and a comment on that, Ingrid?
I just want to stress the point with laws again, because I think it's very important that laws can also be changed. And laws gives us something to work within. So we have had, in Norway, we've just passed in Parliament a new law on religious and life stance communities. And that is after the Church of Norway was no longer a state church, and we are a pluralistic and interreligious society with lots of religions, and these minorities, our minorities, needed a framework, a law that actually says that you are all equal, regardless of whether you are a Jew or a Muslim or a Christian or a non-believer. You are equal in the society. So what we have had now is a new law passing in the Parliament. It will go into force the 1st of January, and that is a very clear signal that regardless of your religious background, you should have the same rights in our societies. I think that's important. I just wanted to stress one more thing about the law that Manuela also said. Thanks.
Okay, any others before I close? Okay. Javed?
Yeah, I just want to kind of reiterate and stress the point that this is a very complex issue. We just have to acknowledge that systemic discrimination and systemic racism do exist. We have to understand the complexities, and we have to understand how to solve the problem collectively, and which means a lot of institutions, a lot of arenas need to work together to do this. Also, I think data is extremely important. I mean, data, when you have the data foundation, it's easy to change when it's easy to measure, when you have the facts and data on board. So I think right now, when we're in time of COVID, it's time for a great reset on all parts of society and also in the world. This is a great opportunity for us to really rethink the society, the business and the organization that we want to build for the future. They need to be inclusive, they need to be equitable, and they need to be fair for all. And I think this is our chance to really walk the talk and leapfrog the conversation which we've been having for the past 20 years.
Linda.
I think we also have to stop being so focused on all the Western perspectives. We have talked a lot about Norway today, and we have talked about the United States. And we also have to remember that in Saudi Arabia, what happened with black people with the police in US is also happening in a much larger and more serious and systematically scale in the Saudi Arabia. So we have to also in global solidarity with people who are oppressed everywhere, also remember that that this is not only something for the privileged, rich Western world. We also have to remember those who are not able to actually speak their mind and raise their voices.
Joseph.
I agree, because it's a global problem, basically. It is. But I don't think honestly, I don't really think laws will change anything, because the laws has always been there, and discrimination has always been there as well. And as Prime Minister Erna Solberg told us earlier, that it's just been an increase in the discrimination and hatred, basically. And all of us know it, really. And it's right there in front of our eyes. So I think we have to hold the politicians and the business leaders accountable. And we have to, and whatever change we want to see, we have to start with ourselves.
Osman.
One of my largest concerns for the whole world, and particularly Norway, is increased polarization of societies. So I think we need to speak to each other very politely. We need to send out a positive message, and we need to hold people accountable. But we also need to acknowledge that during economic and financial problems, some people will seek for more extreme solutions. So if we stand on the right side, we shouldn't hate the ones on the wrong side. And I don't think tearing down statues or revolutions, I don't think that will solve anything. So I think even achieving the good, we need to be good. Not violent, we need to be peaceful, we need to have a positive message. Not, I think, through revolutions or tearing down society.
Thank you, and thanks to all of you for bringing in different perspectives on the very important topic that we are discussing this evening, how to fight hate and discrimination and extremism. And as a small token of appreciation, Aamir, you will give them a bottle to each of them. And since he is a Muslim, you can be sure you can drive car after drinking this. So, no problem. Okay, so then you can leave the floor, and we will close this seminar very shortly by a video message from a Kurdish minister of religion who is addressing this topic. No, we don't have more time for questions from the audience. Can you help me to start this video?
Erna Solberg, Prime Minister of Norway, His Excellency Dr. Muhammad bin Abulkarim Al-Issa, Secretary General of the Muslim World League, Mr. Kjell Magne Bondevik, former Minister of Norway, Mr. Aamir Javed Sheikh, Head of Foundation Dialogue for Peace. First of all, I thank you all and thank you very much for inviting me to this conference. It is a fact that the racial discrimination refers to the injustice, unfairness and oppression in the society. It is believed that this fact has, depending on the history and the events of today. The worst type of discrimination is the violation of human rights, which affects on the millions of the people around the world. It is worth mentioning that discrimination and hatred are the problems that the Kurdish people have faced for a long time by the government of Iraq, one after one. In the Kurdistan region of Iraq, the process of rehabilitation, restoration, and the social economic development has started. After the sectarian war in Iraq in 2006, the Kurdistan region of Iraq embraced about 2 million displaced people from the different territories of Iraq. We created a region which was far from the racial discrimination and sectarian war among the people. We as the government of Kurdistan must protect our society from the discrimination and hatred. The Parliament of Kurdistan issued the law number 5 of 2015, which is called the law of the rights of the component. According to the law, the rights of all the national and religious component and doctrine are preserved. For this, I, as the Minister of Religious Affairs, established and opened a directorate which is called the Coexistence Directorate of the Religious and the Components. The directorate has the representative of all the religious in Kurdistan, which are 8 religions. This directorate is the only directorate all over Iraq. For your information, 85% of all the Yazidi community and 90% of all the Christian community of Iraq now live in the Kurdistan region, and all the religions representative in the government and in the parliament. They practice their administrative and political works very freely. We believe in a social which is based on the international standards. We have to all face the racial discrimination and elimination of the minority, and we must be against the rhetoric of violence and hatred. There are a lot of actions to be taken to reduce and root out the rhetoric of hatred and discrimination. The most important ones are the social conscience, setting plans and strategic which are socially, responsibly and acceptable in a way that they will include the human rights and accepting each other. Thank you very much again. Thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. دولة.
So it was my duty to bring this seminar to a close at 8 p.m. and we succeeded by help of all of you. So on behalf of the organizers, I want to thank all of you for showing up, for respecting the COVID-19 situation, and there is antibac on the table with the exit door. Thank you so much for coming.